Hello, good afternoon, good morning, good evening. We are getting ready to start the first live Q&A session on all things personal finance. The plan was to start at 1 p.m., so I decided to come earlier just to get everybody in and to get some feedbacks rolling in and to check out where some of you are watching me from, where some of you are watching me live, and what questions you might have. You can drop me in the chat. For some of you that don't know me, once again, my name is Paul Alabi. I'm a personal finance coach and expert. I appreciate you taking the time to just join me and listen to me and kind of learn and ask me different questions. As a last count, actually, we had about over 60 questions. The plan is for this to be less than about 1 hour or thereabouts, but I don't know how long I'll take to answer those questions because I don't think I'll be able to answer all 60 on this line, but we'll see how many I can get to in a minute. Okay, let me see who are those that are joining me. Let me know where you're calling me from. I'm excited to jump right in. I have a lot of questions up on my screen. If you see me looking left or right, I'm paying attention. I'm just looking at my other screen where I have the questions set out, and then I can answer, go through them one by one. Okay. Let's see. All right. Time to get started. Once again, thank you for joining. For those of you that join later, let me know what you think in the comments. You can drop your thoughts. You can drop your comments. I just want to also clarify that this is a no shame zone, no judgments. As a personal finance coach, I'm bound by both my moral obligation and also by my clients' ethics to not disclose anything. So whatever they tell me, whatever my students tell me, or problems they're going through, I don't share it with anybody. And so you can expect that whatever you send to me is private and 100% anonymous. 3 things you can expect from me on this live or whenever I'm working with people is: number 1 is honesty. If I don't know something, I'll tell you I don't know the answer to that. Number 2 is facts. I don't just think things out from my head. I have facts. I'm a very numbers driven guy. And so I use numbers a lot to back up my claims or my suggestion. And number 3 is you can expect it to be practical. I'm not going to give you a pie in the sky answer or something that I think that is not visible to do. Basically, whatever I give you is going to be 100% correct. So you can expect that from me. And lastly, I also want to know that everybody that joins here are all learning, so no judgment. I could be way ahead in my game of becoming a great money manager, but I definitely would always appreciate feedback and thoughts on what you guys think and areas where you think you need help with. But okay, with that said, let's jump right into the first question. We are at time. Question 1. My husband is always quick to borrow money whenever we run into challenges. How can I address this? He always borrows money without involving me and is not so sound in financial terms. Okay, so it seems like there's a couple of challenges that I'm sensing from this question, right? Number 1 is the spouse or the husband being quick to borrow money, and on top of that is also not quick. It's also not sound financially. I'm not sure what they mean here by financial terms, but I think financial terms might mean maybe the loan rates, or maybe the terminology, the terms of the loan, or maybe the options to pay back the loan, right? That's what I would think they mean. But I think one of the things that we need to start looking at here in this kind of situation is, one is, why is this person borrowing money whenever they run into challenges, right? There has to be a why. Beyond just saying, right, we're in challenges or things are hard, what is the why? Do they think that by borrowing money they can solve the challenge? If yes, why is borrowing money the option? You have to have this kind of conversation with your husband, and you have to also discuss why you think they are doing this situation. This is beyond me just saying, oh, okay, go and do this. I can provide steps to take to kind of resolve it, but I need to know a little bit more about the issues before I solve it. So number one, why is he borrowing the money, right? We talked about it. Is it because is quick to want to solve problems. Number two is you have to think like this is a man, right? He's probably thinking like I'm a man, like I need to provide for my family, I need to solve problems. So you have to understand why are they quick to borrow money. Number three, there's an underlying problem which is saying you're either living above your means because you don't have emergency funds to like meet those other needs. So I think one of the things you have to think about is how do you solve those three problems? Like, are you spending below above your means? And number four is, do you have a budget? Right? You have to always think about the budget. I know I can sound like a broken record, but there is no way you can actually achieve personal finance success or personal finance mastery without having a budget. It's just not possible. So I would say to you, madam, or I don't know. I don't know if you're straight, but number one is, ask your husband why are they quick to borrow the money? Like why? What is the reason for them to borrow the money so fast? Number two is your husband living? Are you guys living above your means because you don't have emergency funds and all that stuff? Number three is, do you have a budget? You have to be able to think about why this is happening and how can I avoid it. Ultimately, you have to have more than one conversation with your spouse to reach a solution on how to solve this. Because at the end of the day, this is not sustainable, right? Every time, I don't know how many times they borrowed money, maybe one time, 10 times, it is not sustainable. You have to always think about how can I avoid this in the future. Question two, my spouse and I are about to start combining finances. Great. We've been doing it separately before, but it has caused more challenges than anticipated. It has caused too many misalignments and troubles with us. We figured this is the best way to get ahead. Since we heard you talk about the benefits of joint finances, please can you share what we should be aware of as we take on this new style? From your experiences, what are some of the mistakes or issues you've seen and how to navigate? First of all, I would say congratulations on trying to combine finances. I would say also like, because you're combining finances doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It's challenging. Either ways, finances are not an easy thing when it comes to couples. So let that also like be at the back of your mind. However, again, congrats on the idea of trying to combine your finances. And I really, really think that the best way to like succeed as a couple financially is to combine finances. That's my belief, because it has more benefits than cost, right? There's always going to be cost to both ways. If you split finances, there's going to be some challenges in between, but I think the cost of that is more than the benefit. Now you're asking, what should you be aware of? There's going to be many things that come up. Number one, you should think about is like, what are your goals, right? Because you and your spouse have been separately, having finances in the past. So number one thing is, what are your goals? What do you care about? One person might want to spend money, one person might want to invest, one person might want to enjoy experiences, and the other person might just want to be like staycation. So I think number one thing is like determine what your goals are. What do you care about, and what are the most important things that you guys value as a couple? My wife and I, we have this conversation every time, right? Because like we're always having these conversations. It's not going to be an easy journey, but it's definitely going to bring you tons of rewards. So number one is discuss what your goals are. Like, what do you guys care about? Maybe one person wants to live minimally and live in a 2-bedroom. Maybe you want to live in a duplex, right? Or a triplex, whatever it is. Number two, after discussing what your goals are, get clear on your income capabilities, right? So you guys need to understand like how much do you bring in as a family? What's the net income? Not just gross, right? Net income and why. You both have to understand. So when you have those two things, then the next step is determine your lifestyle. You have to communicate. Like that's one of the key things to succeed. You must communicate. What is your lifestyle? What do you care about? So remember I talked about goals, right? Goals is also different from lifestyle, because goals could be things that are aspirational. Lifestyle is more like things that you care about in the day-to-day. So an example, goal could be, I want to buy a nice Mercedes-Benz. A lifestyle could be, I want to live in a 3-bedroom apartment and buy a Mercedes-Benz. So you have to think about those things. Number three is, what are your lifestyle needs? Then number four, you need a budget. And so with that budget, that's where it gets like, you have to like expand and think. You need to now sit down and say, how do we align on this budgeting? Based on our goals, number one. Number two, based on our income. Number three, based on our lifestyle needs. How do we create a budget? Of course, number one thing for a budget is you don't want to always spend within. Talk less of above your means. You always want to spend way below your means. That's the only way you can have surplus. And then when you have surplus, you can, save, you can chill, you can also give to philanthropy. So you always want to think about that and say, okay, what is our budget going to look like? And so that's where you as a couple will come together and agree. After doing a budget, number 5 is you have to track and measure. Because you can do a budget or you can, but if you don't track it and like track your spending, then you can't measure it. So I would say those are the things you should like think about when you are taking on this new style. Now, some of the mistakes or issues I've seen is lack of alignment, right? So, you have to put guardrails. Even though you are combining finances, both of you have to agree and say, okay, what can we do within this marriage? Can I, as the husband, make loans or borrow money anyhow? Can I, as the wife, spend X amount of dollars per month? You need to have guardrails in place. That's number one issue, because you can all together have the goals, lifestyle, income, and budget. But if there are no guardrails, like what stops at where? Who can do what and what can we not do as a couple? You have to understand. Like, another example that comes to mind is like issue of black taxes, right? You might have uncles or aunties or parents or siblings that you want to help. Have guardrails also about that. Like, how much is too much to give to a cousin or to a brother, right? How much is too much to throw as an investment? Those are some of the issues that I see with couples. And how should we navigate is usually coming down to communication. You always have to communicate. Like, one of the beautiful things about having joint finances is that it makes you guys communicate. If you don't communicate, then you can't be aligned. You have to communicate, discuss expectations. What do you care about? Like, what is going on? Have check-ins. Because another problem that I've seen with couples is this happens and then nobody talks about anything, right? Everybody goes a separate way. Go buys this, go buy that. Then there could be overspending. There could be somebody giving out too much money to family, friends. There could be somebody, maybe doing an investment, right? You have to always have that idea and say, how should we communicate? For example, my wife and I think almost every week we have like check-ins. Like, we talk about money things, right? We have guardrails. Example, I cannot go and open a credit card without my wife knowing anymore, right? I cannot open a checking account without my wife even knowing, right? There's a particular amount I can spend on friends and families without my wife knowing. Once I reach that, we have like a threshold, right? And then once I reach that threshold, I have to talk to my wife about it and say, oh, maybe example is $50 or $5,000. You do what works for your family and say, well, if I'm to give my family members anything, I can't give them more than $100 without letting my wife know. Another thing that helps is everybody has their chill money. The way we do it in my family is saying, after looking at our budget, we say, okay, how much do you think you need for your own like fun self, for your own, maybe like my wife, maybe to get her nails done, to do her hair, to eat out. For me too, maybe as a guy, I want to go out with the boys. I want to have my hair cut. I want to maybe buy myself like some shoes or watches. Every month we mark how much should go to one person for their own self and then go to the other person for their own self. So that way, at least, even though we are combining finances, we still have some freedom or like some level of like money to spend on our own thing without checking in with a spouse. Again, that's also agreed upon. We communicate it. We have to discuss and agree on what works and what is important. Okay. Number 3, hello from Nigeria. I figured I can ask you, since you say your expertise and principles are applicable to all scenarios. That's true. I recently got a new job that is double my current salary. Oh, wow, congrats. I'm living with my parents and have no car, okay? This new job requires me to relocate to another area and I am not sure how to budget for this move. Beyond, I think one of the things I would like to know from you is saying, like, do you already have a budget before? So when you say you don't have to budget for this move, what does that mean? I mean, I can't, like, if you are watching me online, you can, you can respond to me, but I don't know what that means. Like, do you mean you want to pay for you to relocate to another area, or you want to, like, create a budget for your new lifestyle because you're living with your parents, you have no car, and then now you want to, like, do all that? I think I'll need more information to further assist you. But if I'm to go off of this, I would, like, tackle it in two ways, right? Number one, for the move itself, like, think about how much the move will cost you. Well, like you said, your salary just got doubled, so you have some cash flow available with you. I would say that you should earmark a particular amount, have a fixed amount that you think is okay for you to spend. You usually start with the amount in mind. So I don't know how much you're being paid. Let's say you're being paid, or let's just say 1 million naira, right, per month. And previously you were being paid 500K. So that means you are being paid double. And then you might say, okay, maybe for my own move, to move my clothes, move my shoes, maybe you go to another state, I don't know where you're going to, right? You might spend like 500K. Have a fixed amount to start and say, okay, based on this move that I'm making, this is how much I want to spend for a one-time lump sum move. Number one. Then number two, on the other side, you want to think about how much will your new lifestyle be. I'm thinking that's what you might be asking about. For your new lifestyle, because you live with your parents, you have to think about your rent, think about how much do you think you want to spend on rent. But before you even go all those things, right, think about how much do you bring in a month. Gross income, let's say you're being paid 1 million naira. Gross income is 1 million naira. Net income, what's the net income? I don't know what the tax rate is. Let's say a 25% tax rate plus pension and everything. Maybe you're bringing in 750K per month. You know, and as an example, I don't know. That's like 7.5 million naira per year. You have to start thinking about, okay, this is how much I bring in a month, and then how much are you going to spend in a month on your different categories? Because you have to create a budget that would mirror your lifestyle for your next move. So I'm not really sure about how you are currently doing your budgeting because you live with your parents. But if I were you, what I would do is I will start backward. How much is my new income going to pay me per month? How much is my monthly expenses, food, electricity, utilities, maybe garbage, cleaning, house rent, and then transportation. You don't have a car. I don't know, maybe you need a new car for your move. Like, this is not very clear to me. So I can't really tell what your best approach is. But based on what I've heard you say, I think you can start with those two. And if you need more information, just shoot me an email or, like, send me a note on Facebook. Great. Number 4, I was thinking of using a credit card. I was thinking of using credit cards to earn more interest on my savings. Should I borrow against my savings to invest in a CD during this time? Since interest rates are high, maybe I can get some free money. I was thinking of using credit cards to earn more interest on my savings. Should I borrow against my savings to invest in a CD? Yeah, I'm not very sure I understand this question correctly. Are you saying you have savings and you want to borrow again? Okay, it seems like you're saying you have the savings already, but you want to borrow more money to invest in it. I think in CD you mean certificate of deposit. Well, what I would say is I'm not very sure about this question because it's not clear to me. But what I would say is before you go borrow, think about the interest. Is the rate of interest higher than the cost of borrowing? You always have to think when it comes to borrowing. From my experience of being in debt and being debt free, two things come to mind. One, cost of borrowing. Number two, rate of return. So if you want to borrow money to invest, what is the interest rate you're going to get for your returns? And this is guaranteed, number one. Number two is, what is the cost of borrowing? If the cost of borrowing is higher than the rate of return, or if the rate of return is lower than the cost of borrowing, it's a no-no. So I would say that you should think about what you're about to do, weigh those two variables, cost of borrowing, rate of return. Based on those two, if the cost of borrowing is way lower, then I think you can borrow and invest. Then you get your returns and then you pay back the loan and you're debt free. Number 5, not to go into too much details, but after watching your videos, I admit my wife and I are both guilty of financial infidelity. How would you recommend we proceed? Well, when tackling financial infidelity, I think you do the first step, right? Which is acknowledging your mistakes and your errors. I did a video on this actually maybe that's why I can see that makes sense as to why you said, you watch my videos. After communicating about it, number 2 is discuss the why. I always talk about this, like, you have to know the why. Some people say, oh, why do you care about what I did? Because the why helps you develop an action plan to avoid a repetition in the future. You have to think about, why did people do what they did? Why did they go and embark on financial infidelity? Is it because of lack of funds, lack of empowerment? Is it resentment, or overspending? Understand the why behind why they did what they did, and then you guys will discuss it. Since the both of you are guilty of it, I think nothing to hide. Both of you come together and discuss. So number 1, discuss. Number 2, why. Number 3, set guardrails. Beyond just discussing it and being open about it, number 2 is the why behind it. Number 3 is the guardrails. How do you avoid this in the future? So maybe you and your spouse currently have separate finances. Maybe you and your spouse currently have like different ways to spend money. Set guardrails around your finances going forward. You have to put guardrails, because at the end of the day, if you don't have guardrails, there's nothing stopping anybody from going out and do what they want to do. You have to have guardrails in place, even if it's unspoken. Discuss it. I've met some couples where they say, oh, well, that's unspoken, that's expected. But you cannot blame me if we didn't agree on guardrails. You can't tell me I'm being wrong when you didn't tell me before that I shouldn't do anything. I would think, oh, I'm an independent person, I can do what I want to do. So I think that number 4. So number 1 is communication, number 2 is the why, number 3 is, guardrails. You need the guardrails in place to discuss it. So that would be number 3. And then once you have guardrails in place, number 4 is execute. You need to execute. Like, how do you go forward from this? Beyond just like talking and discussing, how do you go forward from this? Maybe they took a loan, maybe they bought something. Like, this can look like different ways. I have not engaged in that before, so I can't tell you my personal experience, but I have coached couples who have done that, and then execution is different for each couple. One couple I coached, the spouse paid off the loan and they were free from the infidelity. Another couple I coached, they are working on it and saying, okay, how can we, avoid this in the future by joining accounts? So what execution looks for you might be different from me. But basically, execution just means an action plan. So number 1, you talk about it, you learn everything, whatever everybody has done. You bought watches, you've taken loans, you've traveled, whatever you've done, number 1. Number 2, you have to discuss the why behind the actions. Like, why did they do what they did? Number 3 is have those guardrails. Then number 4 is execute. Execution is important because that's where you have the action plan. Like, what can you do to avoid in the future? Joint finances, discussing about your financial problems before someone takes something. It's specific to your situation. You can reach out to me again for like detailed counseling. Number 6, what is your mindset towards borrowing or debt? Do you think there is bad or good debt? Dave says no debt. Robert Kiyosaki says debt is good. Oh, okay. I see. Okay, like Dave Ramsey. Okay. I like debt, but I like good debt. I also did a video about this in the past, right? I did like a video about good and bad debts. I think Dave Ramsey has a good mind because a lot of people like get carried away with debt. But if you were to ask me like what I think about debt now, I would say I lean more towards Robert Kiyosaki style because I think there's good and there's bad debts. Good debt is the one that makes you more money. Bad debt is one that drains you and takes more of your money. So, which do you want to be? I think I want to be in the good debts bracket. Someone say good debt. Someone say good debt. It's a good debt is good. Yeah, I would say that I like good debts because, and to be honest, right, I've made mistakes in the past. I was owing over 60K in credit cards and personal loans, and now I'm free. I don't want to go back into that lifestyle again. So I definitely understand like Dave Ramsey's point of view because if you're not careful, you get to overspend what you don't plan for. So I'll definitely say there's a difference between good and bad debts. And I'll go with good debt that makes you more money, definitely for sure. Yep. What is your credit score? And question 7, what is your credit score and any tips for maximizing credit scores? My credit score, last time I checked, was actually 812. I think it's too high. 812 is too high for me right now. I think I need to look for ways to bring it down legally. I think that credit score, after you reach like 750, 760, it is like diminishing returns, not like much benefit. So I'll definitely say credit score of 750, it's like, for me personally, some people like the higher numbers, right? But that was my score, 812. And any tips for maximizing credit scores? Well, the number one tip is usually like credit utilization. What's your current credit utilization rate? Like I have 0% utilization on my credit score. So maybe that's why mine is high. But think to yourself, like, do you have credit cards or personal loans? Like, I think the more debt you have, the more debt you have, the more utilization you have, and then that lowers the credit score. Number 2 is payment history. I mean, these are things you can find online. I don't believe that more accounts actually lowers your credit score because I have like new accounts every like 2 years. In fact, I opened like 3 credit cards last 7 months, all with 0 balance, right? So I don't think really that this idea of, having too many new accounts will lower your credit score. I think it's give a temporary ding, but to come back up because again, like I said, I opened 3 new credit cards in like July of this year, and my score is at 812. There was like a 10 points, 15 point temporary like ding when I did like the hard inquiry, but came back right up. So I would say that the number 1 factor is your credit utilization. You always have to have like almost 0 bad debt. Again, bad debt. So personal loans, car loans, credit cards, maybe Target or like shop loans. Like you want to avoid that for a high credit score. Question 8. I'm currently in the middle of a savings goal for the family goal of emergency fund, and then I got hit with a large hospital bill unexpectedly. Sorry about that. Right now, I'm so tired and discouraged. Should I continue saving for emergency or let it be? What do you think? I think that I should keep going. That's what I think, right? But I don't know what your situation is. Like, I don't know what you are going through, but I would say giving up is not an answer. Like, I definitely would not recommend you to give up. I understand the struggle and the pain of like experiencing obstacles on the pathway towards like savings or like paying off debts. And I would say that as somebody who has overcome multiple challenges and debts in the past, I definitely would say that although obstacles can be discouraging and depressing, you don't want to give up. I have like a 5-step framework that I recommend to my students in my coaching program on how to overcome challenges. Number one is acknowledge it, right? I think in this place you're asking me, what do I think? So number one I'll say is acknowledge the problem. From my experience, even like this year alone, right? My family had like multiple financial goals, and we encountered like different challenges on that part on the road. Like one time I incurred the medical bill of like almost $3,000, car repair of $3K. So I understand like these struggles, but I would say number one is acknowledge it. A lot of people like to deny or like to say, oh well, it's okay, moving on. No, like acknowledge your debt. Sorry, not debt. Acknowledge your situation, like whatever you get into, and say maybe it's an emergency medical bill or a roof repair or a home repair, whatever it is. Name it and acknowledge it. Don't run from the problem. Number two, I would say that you should lay out the impact in terms of time. So how much time would it take for you to recover from this challenge? Maybe a year of work for 2 months. Maybe it will take time for you to recover from the financial impacts, maybe about 3 months. Name the impact. Like, what does this mean for you and your family? Like, how much time would you need to recover from the challenge? Number three, name other impacts. What is the financial impact? How much is this going to? You said you incurred a large hospital bill. So I understand. How much is the hospital bill? Is it 1,000? Is it 10,000? Is it $50,000? I know hospital bills could get really crazy, so I can relate to that. So how much is it? Ask yourself, what does this mean for my finances? If it's 10K, think about it. Do you have a payment plan? How would you like quantify the impact to your finances? What does this mean to your finances? Does it mean you have to cut down your costs? Does it mean you have to work overtime? Does it mean you have to like take on a second job? List out the impacts of this setback to your goals. Number four, have an action plan. Now, step one was naming the problem and identifying it. Step two was saying, naming the time impact or time duration, like how long it's going to affect you for. Maybe you're in the hospital, maybe you're out of work. Step three is saying, what is the financial impact to you? Like, what's the cost? Like, other costs you're going to have to incur because of this emergency. Then number four is action plan. This is important because you can do all those 3 steps. No action plan is zero. What's your plan? You have to lay out. And I think that once you have done those first 3 steps, it becomes easier for you to actually develop an action plan. It varies for everybody, right? Yours could be maybe get a second job, right? Maybe cut down your costs more. Maybe sell items. Maybe scale back your plans. I don't know your finances, so I can't like tell you like what to do exactly, but I guarantee you one thing. If you commit to following these 3 steps and this 4th step, your mind will start thinking automatically about how to solve that problem. Your mind will start thinking about, okay, I know the impact to my finances. I know the impact to my timeline. How can I solve this problem? Because action plan is important for you to think about how to solve the problem. Like, how do I go from point A to point B? And for each family, for each person, it differs, right? So that's number 4. Number 5, stay positive. It's very hard to stay positive when issues come your way or when you experience challenges. Very hard. So I understand that again. Because you're thinking, man, I was trying to do all these things and then this happened to me. You're thinking, oh, I'm trying to save 10K and then boom, my car breaks down. Oh, I'm trying to pay off my debts and then my son is sick, right? Stay positive. As a Christian, staying positive for me is like praying and like singing and like trusting the Lord and remembering my past challenges and how I overcome them. For you, it can differ, right? Like, think about what makes you click and what makes you stay positive and stick to that, because you want to avoid a case where you're like in depression or you're not feeling like things are going on well. So you want to avoid that, like stay positive and stay mindful. Okay. Question 9. I read your book and it seems like we're on the same page about living on one income. Oh wow, great. My wife wants to have experiences with the rest Oh, with the rest, but I want to invest it in something else. We have 401k that we do, but I want something extra. I read your book and it seems like we're on the same page about living on one income. My wife wants to have experiences with the rest, but I want to invest. So you have 401k. I see that. Okay. I would say that it's similar to my initial answer to a couple that was trying to combine finances. You have to communicate, right? There's always got to be compromise. You have to communicate, you have to compromise, you have to discuss like what matters most to both of you, right? So if you live on one income, your wife is already compromising. So how do you guys agree on more things to spend the money on? She wants to have experiences, you want to invest. I think they are both great ideas, but the both of you have to discuss the steps to take to achieve each other's goals. And that happens to my family too, right? Like, you know, my wife and I live on one income, right? And then we discuss how to spend the other income. It's a give and take, right? There is no like one winner is for all. No, it's give and take. Everybody has a stake in this, and so we want to capture each person's thoughts. So if your wife wants to have experiences, I think they're very, very valid, right? They're very valid things because she's already trying to live within her means. She's already trying to live under her means by living on one income. So she's thinking, well, we can pay our bills with this one. Let's go enjoy life. And that makes sense, right? So I would say that your number one thing is, one, discuss your goals and commitments. Number two, understand that there's compromises going to involve. You most likely will not have the own money to invest, and she most likely will not have the own money to spend on experiences. Number three, have a budget. You have to always think about it, right? Now that you have discussed your goals and your lifestyle, how do you budget this and ensure that things are going well and on track? I would say you're on the right track. Communicate about your desires. Like in everything, when it comes to couples finances, people I've spoken to, been married for 40 years or 30 years or 10 years, 1 year, you always have to communicate. You need to communicate each other's desires and goals together, and then you have to work. It's always a collaboration. You always have to work together to achieve those goals. Okay, question 10. Oh wow. I took your advice and started doing a budget to further understand more about house costs. Oh, okay. Although I've not signed up to be coached, I've been following your advice. Thank you. I am crumbling under the mortgage payments, PMI, taxes, etc., which takes out exactly 43% of our income gross and about 55% of our net. That's a tough spot. I figured out why we are stuck in continuous credit card and personal loan cycle. What will your advice be for us? We've been owning this house for 4 years and still going about this. Our income is $300,000. We have 2 kids, etc. This is an interesting challenge. So it seems like this person watched my video and started doing budgeting. Yeah. If your mortgage is taking 55% of your net, that's high. Well, I'll say the number one thing you're doing well is a budget. Number two, you have to learn how to contain your costs. Like beyond just the budget, are you really like following your budgeting? Are you tracking your spending? So if your mortgage alone takes up 55% of your expenses, how much is left in a month? You know, are you ensuring that your balance of your income is catering to all your other needs. And it seems like it's not, because you said you have figured out why you are stuck in continuous credit card and personal loan cycle. So that means you are taking lots of credit cards and personal loans to cover your expenses. Well, that's not good. So number one, which you did, is having the budget. Number two is you got to double down. What does that look like for you as a family? So with your budget, are you tracking it? Number three is, what steps can you take as a couple to reduce your mortgage? I don't know. I think now we're like in a high interest rates time. So have you thought about refinancing, lowering your credit, lowering your interest rate if it's possible? Also, do you have you have to think about how you can make more money, right? So in this case, I would say, are you thinking about maybe like renting out some of your bedroom if you have space? You have 2 kids. I think you said you have 2 kids, right? You could think about renting out a room to make some more money. You got to start thinking about ways. I think you're on the right track, right? Have a budget. Number 2, do some more details about your costs. And if your costs are more than your income, number 3 is double down and start reducing your costs. Number 4 is look for ways to reduce your income. Look for ways to reduce your expenses. That's what I meant. Your expense, because that was going to help you kind of cut back on the personal loans and credit card cycle. You got to think about that continually. Okay. 11. When you talk about paying yourself first, please elaborate further. How can I pay myself first when I have bills to pay? How can you? Yeah, I love paying myself first, right? I think the idea of paying yourself first, the idea of paying yourself first came from Robert Kiyosaki, and we all have bills to pay. It's simple in theory, but hard to practice. From every paycheck that you get, before you spend any money on your bills, on anything, take out an amount for your financial goals. So, an example, you make $5,000 in net income per month. Before spending your money on your rent or car or house, whatever it is, determine how much you think you need to have saved by the month and take that amount from your paycheck and then live on the rest. Now, you have bills to pay, right? Sometimes, rent is due on the 1st or 2nd of the month. You want to pay your insurance on a particular time. I understand that. That's why you need a budget. You need to have a budget to guide you. So even if all your bills are due on the first 10 days, that doesn't mean you can't pay yourself first. Pay yourself first is a practice that you have to imbibe regardless of when you are paid or what your bills are. Meaning, with your budget, you can say, I'll take out $500, $1,000 from my income and then live on $4,000. So that means your rent, your car, insurance, phone bill, whatever it is, has to align to that $4,000. It doesn't matter if you take out the money at the first of the month or last of the month. As long as each month you are taking out $1,000 from your paycheck to ensure that your goals are being met optimally and continually. Question 12. I have no debts but don't have savings. How would you rate me? I don't know if I can rate anybody like that. I think rate on what scale, right? I mean, it could go either ways, right? Rate in being a good money manager or rate in an investor. What do you mean rate? I guess I want to understand what you mean by ratings in this sense. I would say, congrats that you don't have any debts, but it's not good that you don't have any savings. Because what happens if you lose your job or you have an emergency, right? That's not good still. I think you want to have more savings and little to no debt. I don't know how I'll rate you with that because that's not good. You want to have some savings. Even though you have no debt, which is good, but then you also need some savings in order to meet unforeseen expenses. Question 13. My spouse and I don't agree on money terms. We currently make a joint income of $250,000. We join our finances, but it's been a problem. She is the spender, but I'm usually frugal. Uh-oh. Well, that's welcome to the club. I mean, my wife and I don't agree on finances either. We're always like bickering and disagreeing. So I understand that, when you, and I think it's okay, right? It doesn't mean that your wife doesn't love you or you just have different mindsets. And that's normal because you are two different people. She's a spender, you are frugal. Okay, well, like I said, always communicate. You have to communicate. There's always going to be problems. That one is a fact. Like, if you think that because you are making more money and there won't be problems, that's a lie. I don't care if you are Bill Gates or you're like anybody else. You can have all the money, you and your spouse need to be on the same. Because guess what? You can be a Bill Gates husband and your wife is going around buying things. What you gonna do? She's going around buying private jets, flying private, buying Emirates bags, buying Louis Vuitton because her husband has money, right? So there's always going to be problems. Instead, what you want to do is discuss, come together and agree. Now, doesn't mean it's going to be easy. There will be challenges, there will be issues that come up, there will be disagreements, but both of you need to come together, discuss and communicate what the expectations are for each other. Because you and your wife will never agree on money, but you can compromise. She may not be a totally frugal person, and you will not be a totally spender person. Meet in the middle, right? Agree. How much should we spend? Because you make a lot of money. I don't know if you have kids, because you don't say if you have kids here, but 250K is a lot of money for two couples, right? So think to yourself, how can we agree as a couple to spend this money and ensure that we are on the same page? If you want to see the success of your finances, number one, communicate. Number two, agree, have a budget. Number three, track and measure. You have to always track it, measure it, and see how you're doing in terms of achieving your goals. Question 14. What do you think about student loans? I'm trying to figure out if I should pay it off or invest the money. We are currently not in any form of debt. We have a surplus of about 2K per month. I was wondering what to do with it. I mean, congrats on not having any debts. I think when it comes to either investing or paying off a loan, there's a couple of things I would think about, right? Number one is, what is the loan terms, right? What is the cost of borrowing? I always talk about this. What's the cost of borrowing? How much are you in debt for? And how much is it costing to pay back? Number two, when you're investing, what is the rate of returns? And what is the guarantee that you get that rate? If the rate of returns are higher than the cost of borrowing, it's a no-brainer. Now, if it's not like sure, maybe like an Airbnb or like an Uber, whatever it is you're trying to do as a side business, start thinking, how can I ensure that I'm making enough money to not lose out on paying off my student loans? Because I don't know how much your student loans are, right? Are they 100K, 10K, I don't know what, 50K? Whatever it costs, you need to sit down and say, how much am I paying for my student loans on a monthly basis? And with this 2K of investment, how much can I get as a return? 2K a month times 12 is 24K, right? You can pay your student loans in 4 years if it's 100K, right? But in those 4 years, do you think you'll be able to get investments worth more than 100K in 4 years if you put 2K away every month? I'm not sure what kind of investment you want to do, but that's something that you have to do the mathematics and think about how you will achieve that goal, like going forward. Question 16. Oh, no, I jumped. 15. You mentioned this concept of affordability. You mentioned this concept of affordability not being equal to buying. Can you elucidate further on what you mean? You mentioned this concept of affordability not being equal to buying. Can you elucidate further on what you mean? Oh, okay, I got it now. So like, because you can afford something doesn't mean you should buy it. I think, yep, that's right. Yeah, I mean, you can afford anything, doesn't mean you shouldn't, but you must always practice discipline. Yeah, that's part of being a great money manager, is discipline, right? You have to think about it. Like, how disciplined are you when it comes to your finances? Because very good. It can also apply towards car loans or like even mortgage, right? Because you are approved for 5K per month mortgage, it don't mean you go and get a house that is going to cost you 5K per month, because there's always going to be things that you will need that come up later that you will need that surplus for to cover. So an example, right, is you currently can afford to pay a 6K mortgage, and then you decide to pay only 3K for a mortgage. Guess what? You have 3K surplus for yourself, and then you cannot decide to use 3K to either for your house repairs, for vacation, or other savings, right? Because this idea that I can afford it means I can buy it is just so wrong and can lead you to a trap of debt and emergency. Because on the flip side, if you decide that, hey, I want to buy this because I can afford it, and then you are approved for 6K, and then your mortgage is 6K, what happens when there's emergencies? What happens when your car breaks down? What happens if you have to stop working? What happens if you incur an emergency medical bill? All these things are not like if they will happen, they will happen. It's more about when they will happen. Because for a fact, they're going to happen. It will happen to you today, next month, next year. They will happen. And when they happen, you will not have any shortfall or surplus to fall back on. And that's not going to be good. 16, I'm on a visa, but trying to get familiar with the credit system. Well, I used to be an international student before, so I understand this. I would say that you're on the right track by trying to get familiar with the system. I think do some research, right? Like, one of the things that I don't do is, like, for the most part, if you find something online, like, no point coming to me because you can learn it online. I provide expertise in things that are harder to find online versus things that you can find online. So knowing more about the credit system, you can read, like, just Google it. Credit cards, loans in America, like, you get some overview, like, read blogs have it. I think you can get some more information on that. But I think it's good that you get familiar with the credit system, because with a good credit or with a great credit, you can get a lot of, like, perks and bonuses. So I definitely think that you're on the right track by wanting to learn about credit systems, but I can't, like, tell you, like, what to learn about. You got to go learn. Like, what do you care about? Is it about the interest rates? Is it about credit scores? Is it about credit cards? Is it about auto loans? Like, it's very wide and vast. You need to niche down and see and ask yourself, what do you care about and what do you want to learn? And so with that, I can now, like, guide you and say, okay, this is what you can do, and this is how you can do stuff. Question 17. Some water. My wife wants to own a house, but I'm not keen on that right now. I feel like there's a lot to think of before owning a house, like taxes, mortgage, PMI, insurance. Yep, that's right. Am I being dramatic? My wife isn't happy with me on this. I told her we have more time before owning a house. I don't know. I can't tell you, like, yes or no. I think it looks like you already know what it's going to cost to own a house. That's the good stuff. You see, when I'm working with couples, right, number one thing is communication. You always have to understand, like, why is your wife not? Why is the wife not wanting to remain in a rented apartment or rented house? Like, why? That's number one. Number two is, does she know about these fears of yours? Because a lot of men think about this, right? Say, oh, well, I know this, I know this, I know that. Well, what if she doesn't know about it? What if she's not aware about these costs? She might be thinking, oh, well, when I get a house, I'll only be paying mortgage. But you're right? There's taxes, there's PMI, there's insurance, there's also other maintenance. If you have a condo, you might have to pay like HOA fees, right? So I think both of you need to come together, number one, and communicate your desires and goals. Number two, deep dive into your finances, right? If she's trying to rent a house, does she know how much you will need for mortgage and all those things? Like, can you afford that? You have to look at your budget. You have to look at your finances together as a couple and say, hey, what can we afford? What can we not afford? And then go from there. Number three is weigh the pros and the cons. Buying a house is more than just owning the house. Does she want a house because, I don't know if you have kids, like, does she want her kids to like have a yard to play? Does she want to have a garden? Does she want to have a bigger space so she can have kids? You have to discuss the pros and the cons of having a house. When it comes to house purchasing decisions, a lot of people do it one or the other way. Like, either logical, okay, if I buy a house today, next 10 years it will increase in value. Or if I buy a house today, it will increase in quality. Or emotional. Oh, if I buy a house today, I'm going to have experiences. I'm going to have like my kids run to the backyard. I'm going to have a playground. I'm going to have a garden. I'm going to have a shed. You have to combine both factors, the logical and the emotional, and then look and say, as a couple, come to an agreement. What matters most to you? For example, my wife and I, we discussed it, right? We're on the same page. Doesn't mean we agree. Like, my wife would like to have a house right now, but she understands that, well, having a house right now will jack up our expenses. And we don't have any kids, right? So there's no like business case for us to have a house. Now, when we have kids and they're growing like 2, 3, maybe 3 kids or 4 kids, or like they're getting older, we might think maybe it's time for us to buy a house. And in that time, we will again sit down and say, what do we care about, right? Okay, if we buy a house, we got to think about the mortgage, think about the taxes, maintenance, and other fees attached to it, number one. Number two, why do we want a house? Are we going to like save up some more money for repairs, for maintenance, like maybe the lawn, when it's snow time, for the boiler repair? There are many things to factor in when trying to get a house. Wow, we have 5 more minutes left to 2 o'clock, and I'm just on question 17. This is a lot of questions right now. Question 18. Budgeting is a concept I'm familiar with, but the way you say it can be used for anything is new. Okay, that's right. I typically plan trips or birthday celebrations for my kids without budgeting. Oops. I guess I'm missing out on something. That's right. Yep. Yes. How would I go about budgeting for trips, gifts, etc., despite all other things? I commend you for saying you're even missing out on. That's right, because if you're not budgeting your other expenses, you are definitely missing out on lots of things. Like, how are you sure you're not overspending? How are you sure you are maximizing your money's value, right? So I think you already said that you wing it, so that's not good. I would say that for trips, gifts, celebrations, those require a separate budget, right? And I talk about this more in like my videos and my content. Is when it comes to budgeting, you have to approach it from 3 angles. Your monthly budget. How much do you spend on a monthly basis, and how much do you have left after your monthly expenses are taken care of? That's monthly budget. Whatever surplus you have left from your monthly now rolls over to your yearly budget category. So in this case, maybe like your yearly taxes if you own a house, maybe yearly insurance, maybe yearly medical checkup, whatever it is, or birthday celebrations. These are all yearly things, right, that you have in place. Now, you have to create a budget for those events because they cost money. And how do you know you can afford them if you don't have a budget for it? How do you know you can afford them and you also have surplus left? Then, after doing your yearly, then you move to the third stage, which is your monthly. Sorry, which is your in-between. So, first is monthly, second is yearly, and the third one is in between. That's the in between that comes in like, things like gifts or trips. Maybe you have like a wedding you want to attend. Maybe someone is doing birthday, you want to give them gifts. Maybe you want to go for a getaway or for a relaxation. That's where you need the in between budgeting to take place. You always have to think about every time you spend money, it needs to be budgeted. That's the reality. Again, think like a company, right? A company doesn't just spend money anyhow. They have millions, billions, right, in revenue and in cash. Yet every dollar is accounted for. When you travel for the company spend, even if you spend money on a coffee, I think now they've changed it, but before, I think it used to be any amount you spend on anything must be documented. Now, I think the IRS says as long as it's under $25, you don't need a receipt. But you must document it. You still have to document how much you spend on a company trip, on a company expense. So I think that if you are saying like, oh, once I'm budgeting my monthly expenses, I don't need more money, that's a lie. You need to have a budget for everything you spend money on. Question 19. We are trying to plan for emergency Take that back. We are trying to plan for emergency savings. We are married and have 3 kids. We have a mortgage, student loans, and 1 car loan. We don't necessarily have a budget, but we'd like to start one. How should we go about this? What kind of expenses should we factor in when planning for this type of goal? This kind of question is very detailed because I'm not understanding when you say that a budget, are you saying that you want to start a budget or you want to start for emergency savings? I think if you can comment and let me know what you are thinking about, that will help me understand what your questions are. So you are asking about how you can start a budget, or okay, you also said what kind of expenses should we factor in when planning for this type of goal. I think I need more context, right? I need more context in the sense that, are you trying to start a budgeting system and also start to save for emergency expenses? Well, to start a budget, I actually answered that question earlier. And I talked about how, for a budget, high level, number one, have a fixed amount you want to spend in a month. Get clear on how much, that's right. You can have a fixed amount, but let your fixed amount be pegged to your net income, right? How much do you think you could spend in a month? And then after in a month, you come down to your yearly budget and then in between budgets. So 3 budgets. And for your emergency expenses, and for your emergency savings, number 1 tactic is a goal is pay yourself first. You always have to pay yourself. You need to practice paying yourself first, because in this case, you're trying to save for your emergency funds. That's a goal that you need to save for, and that's a lot of money. So you need to bring in paying yourself first to achieve that goal quickly. Question 20. I've been paying credit card interest for years now and ready to be free. What steps do you recommend? Well, I would say number 1, congrats on trying to be debt free. A lot of people are still in that cycle. I remember when I was in credit card debt, so I know how it is. I would say, like, number one, congrats. The steps to be free are what I talk about, right, in my content or in my YouTube video. Number one is get clear on how much you want to pay off. How much? 1,000, 10,000. Number two is what's the timeline? How soon do you want to be free? Like, how soon, how bad do you want to be free? How bad are you hungry to be free? Number three is specify your monthly payment. So, an example, you're owing $10,000 and you want to be free in the next 10 months. That means your monthly payment will be $1,000 per month. Number four, pay yourself first. You have to pay yourself first. So every month, before anything else, take out 1K, wipe to your credit card. 10 months, you are free. 21, I'm about to get married. My fiancé and I are planning and putting away money. How best do you recommend we attack this? Congrats on your engagement. That's good. Marriage is good. We are trying to start our marriage on the best possible foot, but also understand that marriage isn't about the wedding. We are trying to start our marriage on the best possible foot, but also understand that marriage isn't about the wedding. I agree. Well, you are doing a lot of things well, right? Which is number one, you are putting money away. Number two, you're also saying you want to start your marriage on the best possible foot. So that's good. To attack your wedding goals, I think you have to, again, align. Communication is very important. You have to communicate and discuss what is important to you as a couple and how to work towards it. So, how much do you want to spend on the wedding? I can't tell you how much to spend on the wedding. I can't tell you that because that's up to you to decide based on your finances, on your emotions, and your desires, right? So I think that the number one thing the both of you need to talk about is like how much do you want to spend on the wedding. The number two is to attack this, apply the same framework that I said about paying off debt or savings goal. It's the same way, the same framework. How much you want to spend, how long till you get married, your timeline, what's the monthly payments for, pay yourself first, that's it. So that's how to attack it. Now, as for how to start your marriage on the best possible foot, I can't tell you how to do that because, again, this depends on your finances and on your family. But you and your spouse can discuss and agree on what is important to you as a newlywed couple. For me, I could say, well, number one is debt-free. I don't want to start my marriage in debt. That's just me, right? You could say for you, it's okay to be in debt, but not too much debt, right? So I think the both of you need to come together and discuss what is it that matters most to you and how can you translate that into good steps for your finances as a couple. Best foods is determined by you, right? So some people now can decide to start a marriage with no debt but with no savings, right? Some people can say, I want to get married with no debt but with a lot of savings. So for the first 6 months, we are good. Some people can say, I want to get married, little debt but little savings, but a nice house, well, nice kitchen, nice sofa, whatever. Everybody has different goals that matters to them. The both of you, again, have to come together and discuss. I am always pro communication, pro couple, pro collaboration. Wow, we are already past 1 hour and we have barely reached half of the questions. But I will stop here. I think that I will have to have another live where I have to go into more like questions. But I want to say that my plan was to do this for 1 hour and keep it like 1 hour because of time. Thanks to those that joined live and for your comments. Thank you for watching. I hope that this session has been very insightful. I promise you I'm going to have to come back again because I have like tens of questions I've not yet answered. So I don't forget you, but I think that for my plan, I plan to spend 1 hour or thereabout for this first live. and then to see how it goes. I would always try my best to answer these questions, because actually this live that I do is reserved for my students in my coaching program, where like every week we go through like live coaching session. Everybody asks their questions, and then I answer it, and then I give my best knowledge, right? So I'm giving this out like just to help people, because a lot of people have like questions for me and need help on how to become, better at their money. But thanks for watching. I'm going to put it also on YouTube, so in case you want to replay on the YouTube, or for those of you that don't have Facebook, I'm going to, make sure that you guys are not missing out on this wonderful content. But thanks for watching. I remain your humble self, Coach Paul. I hope to see you next time. Until next time, bye for now.